Hello, my name is Mayanka. I am accounts and finance trainer from Uplatz. Today, we will cover the topic of refund. This is part 4 of such concept. In part 1, 2 and 3, we have covered all the most important and the important topics of refund. In part 4 and in part 5, we will cover other relevant and the important concept so that you can properly understand the concept of refund, because the refund is one of the important concept under the GST. So the proper and the detailed knowledge of such concept is very much important. In this part 4, we will discuss what will be the minimum amount of the refund which can be claimed. Means we will discuss the minimum amount of refund, and we will also discuss processing for refund, means how we proceed or how we can claim, and we will also discuss important relevant important and the relevant sections and the concept which are relating to the refund. So now we will start part 4 of refund concept. Refund under the GST. Part 4. Minimum refund claim. What will be the minimum refund claim? Section 54 subsection 14. Section 54 subsection 14, minimum refund claim. No refund shall be paid to an applicant. No refund shall be paid to an applicant if the amount is less than 1000 rupees. Is that if the amount of the refund claim is less than rupees 1000, then the applicant is not eligible for such a refund. Means the government or the authority will not provide, it will not repay or it will not refund if the amount is less than 1000 rupees. If it is more than 1000 rupees, then the assessee or the taxpayer can claim the amount of refund. But if it is less than 1000, then the taxpayer can't claim it. The limit of 1000 shall apply. It shall be applied for each tax head separately, not cumulatively. Means the limit of 1000 shall be applicable for each tax head. Means in the case of IGST, it should not be less than 1000. In the case of SGST, it should not be less than 1000. In the case of CGST, it should not be less than 1000. Means we will consider 1000 separately for each head, not cumulatively. Means we will not take 5000 of CGST, 2000 of, sorry, 3000 of SGST and 3000 of CGST. Total is 1100, which is more than 1000. So we can claim. So it is not applicable. Means if we consider the claim amount of claim of refund, then it should not be more, it should not be less than 1000, and the 1000 it should be separately for each head of the tax, each head of the tax. Further, the limit is 1000. Further, the limit would not apply in the case of refund of excess balance in the electronic cash ledger. Is that such a limit shall not be applicable when there is the refund of excess balance of electronic cash ledger. Electronic cash ledger, normally the balance of electronic cash ledger is used for the payment of taxes. For the payment of taxes, for the payment of tax, first the taxpayer, he will utilize the credit of, means electronic credit ledger. If the amount of electronic credit ledger is not sufficient, it is not sufficient for the payment of tax, then the balance payment is made by the such person through electronic cash ledger. So for making the payment through the electronic cash ledger, the person will deposit a particular amount in the electronic cash ledger. If there is the balance, if there is the balance of rupees 1000 or less than 1000 in the electronic cash ledger, if there is a balance of electronic cash ledger in is rupees 1000 or 800, it is 800, and if the taxpayer wants to and the taxpayer wants to refund it refund such amount of 800, but as per the provision the amount of the refund claim shall not be less than 10,000, shall not be less than 1000 rupees. But in this case when there is the but in case when there is the refund of excess balance in electronic cash ledger, is that if there is the refund of excess balance in electronic cash ledger, then if it is less than 100, then it is also refunded. Means he can claim for the refund if the amount is 800 rupees. If the amount is 800 rupees, then he can also claim for the refund. So, normally the amount of the refund claim shall not be less than 1000 rupees. It should not be less than 1000. It should be more than 1000. And it will be considered separately for each of the account head. It would be considered separately for each of the account head. For each of the account head, not cumulatively. Is that we will not consider it cumulatively. We will consider it we will consider it separately per tax head wise, per tax head wise. So it can say that the amount of the refund claim shall not be less than 1000. But in case when there is a refund of excess balance in electronic cash ledger, then in this case such provision is not applicable. Is that if the amount in electronic cash ledger is less than 1000, then the person can claim for the refund. Now we will discuss refund in the case of goods or services which is exported out of India. What will be the refund? Now we will discuss the refund in the case of goods or services which are exported out of India. Means there is the export of goods or there is the export of services. In the case of this, we have two options. We can export the goods or export the services through LUT, letter of undertaking. Letter of undertaking, we can exported the goods or exported the services, or we can export the goods or export the services without the payment of tax. So now in this class we will discuss the refund in the case of export of goods or export of services out of India. Exporter has the option either to, means the exporter has an option. The exporter has an option in the respect of export of goods or export of services. Number one, exporter export under bond or under LUT without the payment of IGST, and he can claim the refund of ITC. Is that in the case of refund, the exporter has two options. We have previously discussed the exporter has two options in the case of export, whether this is the export of goods or export of services. Number one, he can he can do the export, or he can export the goods or services on the basis of LUT without the payment of tax, or through the payment of tax, means he will pay the amount of IGST because it is the interstate supply. So there is a requirement to pay IGST. So in this case, he has these two options. Number one, export under bond or export under LUT, letter of undertaking, without payment of IGST. Through bond or through the LUT, there is no need to pay the amount of IGST, means there is no need to pay the amount of tax during the export. And on the basis of this, he can claim the refund of ITC. The exporter can claim the refund of ITC. First option is export under bond and LUT without the payment of ITC and claim the amount of ITC. And the second option is pay IGST at the time of export and claim the refund thereof. Second option is pay the amount of IGST at the time of export of goods, export of services, or both. Then after take the refund. Then after file the application for the refund of such amount of IGST. So these are two options. Any of the option can be adopted by the exporter. Means he can adopt first option, or he can adopt the second option. It is a choice of exporter. He can he can export the goods or export the services through the LUT or through the bonds without the payment of IGST, or he can export the goods at by the way of IGST, or export the services by the payment of IGST, and then after he can claim the refund of such tax. The provision relating to the refund in each of the said cases has been given below. Means the provision relating to the refund in both cases are as follows. Number one, refund on account of export of goods and services. Refund on account of export of goods or services, where the payment of tax, means we will discuss the refund or account of export, means there is the export of goods and export of services, and such export is made under the second option, means the IGST. The payment of IGST is made by the exporter at the time of export of goods or export of services. Then in this case, what will be the treatment and what will be the procedure of refund? Refund on the account of export of goods, export of services, or both, with payment of tax, with the payment of tax. Rule 96. Rule 96. In case where the exporter of the goods or services, or both, where the exporter of services, or both, opts the opts the opts to pay IGST, of goods or services, or both, opts to pay IGST on the export of goods services, or both, at the time of export, and claim refund of the IGST thereof. Then the provision relating to the refund of IGST are as follows. If there is export of goods, there is the export of service, and at the time of export, the amount of IGST is paid by the exporter at the time of export. So now we will discuss the provision relating to the refund. Means what will be the provision in the case of refund. Number one, export of goods. When there is the export of goods. Number one, application for refund claim. Application for the refund claim. The shipping bill. oblique bill of entry. Sorry, bill of export. Number one, application for the refund claim. First, the application for the refund claim is made by the exporter. Is that first he will make an application for the refund claim. The shipping bill, the shipping bill oblique bill of export. The shipping bill and the bill of export filed by the exporter of goods shall be deemed to be an application for the refund, and the taxpayer is not required to file separate refund application in this case. When there is the export of goods, in the case of export of goods, a shipping bill or a bill of export filed by the exporter for the export of goods. Because if any person wants to export any goods outside India, then a shipping bill or the bill of entry is bill of export is required to be filed. Such a shipping bill or such a bill of export will be considered as, or it will be deemed as, an application for refund. Means means in the case of refund, in the case when there is the export of goods and the payment of IGST is made by the exporter at the time of export of goods. So for filing the claim, means for filing the application or for taking the claim, there is a requirement to make an application. But in this case, there is no need to file an application, because the shipping bill or the bill of export, which is filed by the exporter, will be considered as or will be deemed as an application. It will be considered as or it will be deemed as an application for the refund. It will be considered as an application for the refund, and the taxpayer is not required to file separate refund application in this case. In this case, there is no need to file a separate application for filing the refund claim. So, the shipping bill or the bill of export will be considered as application for refund. There is no need to file a separate application. There is no need to file a separate application for the refund of IGST, which is paid by the exporter at the time of export of goods. Further, such application shall be deemed to have been filed only when such application shall be deemed to be filed only when, if these conditions are satisfied, then it will be considered that the application has been filed for the refund. Number one, when person in charge, when the person in charge of the conveyance, when the person in charge of the conveyance carrying the export goods duly files a departure manifest. The person in charge of the conveyance, the person in charge of the conveyance who is carrying the exported goods, means the person in charge of the conveyance. Conveyance may be include vessel, aircraft, it may be include vessel, aircraft, ship, and the other vehicle. Then the person in charge of such conveyance, the conveyance which is carrying the exported goods, duly file a departure manifest. It is file a departure manifest, means it is provide a departure manifest. The departure manifest is a statement which is contain the information about such goods which are exported. Then he will file Then such person in charge will file before the departure to the export from a place of India. He will file a departure manifest or an export manifest or an export report, which covering the number and the date of shipping bills and the bill of export. The person in charge of the conveyance, who is the conveyance which is carrying the exported goods, which are carrying the exported good, duly furnish a, or he will duly file a duly file a departure manifest or an export manifest or an export report, which will cover, such a report will cover all the number and the date of shipping bill and the bill of entry. It will cover all the number of shipping bill and the bill of entry. The second condition is the applicant has furnished a valid return in form GSTR 3 or form in GSTR 3 means the second condition is the applicant after the export of such goods on the relevant date within the relevant date the applicant is required to furnish a valid return. The valid return, it may be GSTR 3 or GSTR 3. So, if the person in charge of the conveyance file a departure manifest or export manifest or the export report, and second is when the applicant has furnished the valid return, then if these conditions are satisfied, then it will be considered that the shipping bill and the bill of export, which is submitted by the exporter, is a application for the refund. Means it will be considered as application for refund. No need to file another, no file to need another application for the purpose of refund. GST portal shares the detail of GST portal shares the detail of relevant export invoice in the respect of export of bill. GST portal shared it shared the detail of relevant export invoices in the respect of export of goods. When there is the export of goods and when the GSTR1 is filed by the person and that such GSTR1 contain all the detail of outward supply. So the export is also a outward supply. The export of the goods is also the outward supply. So the GSTR1 will also contain the information about such outward supply. Then when in GSTR1 the bill of the exports are filed by the person or the taxpayer, then the GST portal will share the detail of the relevant export invoices in the respect of export of goods, which are contained in form GSTR1 with the system which is designed by the custom ISK, which is designed by the custom. The said system shall electronically transmit to the common portal a confirmation that the goods which are covered by the said invoice has been exported out of India. Means such ICE gate or the system of custom will provide the information to the common portal about the exported goods. He will provide that the goods he will provide that the goods and he will provide the confirmation that the goods sorry it will provide this system will provide the confirmation this system will provide the confirmation to the common portal that the goods which are covered under these invoices under the said invoices has been exported out of India. There is the confirmation that such goods are exported, such goods which are covered by the such invoice has been exported, out of India. This is the confirmation about the exportation of goods. However, where the date for furnishing the detail of outward supply in form GSTR1 for the period has been extended, where the date of furnishing the detail of export in form GSTR1 the detail of outward supply is submitted by the exporter in form GSTR1 if the date of furnishing the return of GSTR1 for a tax period has been extended. For the example, the date of filing of GSTR1 is 10 If for the month of October it is extended, now it is 15. Now it is 15. Then the supplier may furnish the information relating to the export as specified in table 6A of form GSTR 1 after the return in form of GSTR 3B has been furnished, and the same shall be transmitted electronically by the common portal to the system which is designed by the customer. In this case, where the data which is furnished of outward supply in GSTR form for the tax period has been extended, then the supplier, in this case, the supplier shall furnish, in this case, the supplier shall furnish the information relating to the export, means he will, the information which is relating to the export, which are specified in table 6A of form GSTR1. After the return in form GSTR 3B has been furnished, he will furnish all this information, and the same shall be transmitted electronically on the common portal to the system which is designed by the customer. Further, such information which are furnished in forms in table 6A shall be auto-populated in form GSTR1 for the set period. Means if the date of GSTR1 is extended, then he will furnish all the detail of such export in table 6A. In table 6A of form GSTR1. GST1 after return in form 3B, means after the filing of return 3B, he will provide all this information, all the export of goods in table GST, in table 6A of GSTR1, because there is the extent in the date of GSTR1. But the GSTR 3B is also required to be filed. So he will provide, such taxpayer will provide the information about such export in such GSTR 3B. In GSTR 3B, when the GSTR 3B will be filed, then it will be auto generated. Then such transaction will be auto generated in GSTR 1 for the said period. Means the information about the such export will be auto generated in the return GSTR1, because such return is already such data or such information or such detail about the export is already submitted by the such taxable person in his return GSTR 3B. So it will take the information. So it will take, means GSTR1 will take such information from the GSTR 3B, and it will be auto populated. It will be auto populated from table 6A. Is that there is no need to provide the information in table 6A. It will be auto populated from GSTR 3B. From GSTR 3B, it will be auto populated in table 6A of GSTR 1 for the said tax period. Now we will discuss processing of refund claim. What will be the process of refund claim? What will be the process? What will be the process of refund claim? Process of refund claim. Upon the receipt of information regarding the furnishing of valid return, when we have received the information about the return that a valid return has been furnished, upon the receipt of information regarding the furnishing of valid return, means when the valid return is filed, GSTR1 is filed by the taxpayer. IGST system designed, which is designed by the custom. IGST system which is designed by the custom or the proper officer of the custom, any one of them. IGST of the custom or the proper officer of the custom shall process the claim of refund in the respect of export of goods is that when they have received the information or when they have received the GSTR1 in the respect of such exported goods, means when they are received the information about the outward supply of such person, and such outward supply also contain the information about the such export. In then the ice gate, then the ice gate of custom or the proper officer of the custom, they will start the process of refund in the respect of export of goods, means they will start the process of the refund of such goods. They will start the process. An amount equal to the refund paid in the respect of each shipping bill. An amount an amount which is equal to the refund paid in respect of each shipping bill. Each bill of export shall be electronically credited to the bank account of the applicant. The bank account which is mentioned, the bank account which is mentioned in the registration particular or and as intended to the custom authority is that the amount which is equal to the IGST paid, means when there is the export of the goods, then the amount of IGST, is paid by the exporter. So in this case, an amount which is equal to the an amount which is equal to the IGST, the amount of IGST which is paid by the exporter, at the time of export of goods or export of service. So for at the time of export of goods in the respect of each of the shipping bill or bill of export shall be electronically, the amount of such IGST shall be electronically credited to the account of taxpayer. The account number which is mentioned in his registration or or as per the intimation to the custom authority. So the amount of such IGST will be credited to the account of exporter. Now we will discuss withholding of refund of GST. Withholding, when the refund of the IGST is withholded. It is withholding. The claim for refund shall be withhold the claim of the refund of IGST where there is any export of goods shall be withhold. It is shall be withhold where a request has been received from the Judicial Commissioner of Central Tax. A request has been received. When a request has been received from the judicial commissioner of central tax, state tax or union territory tax to withhold the payment of such a refund due to the person who is claiming refund in the accordance with the provision of section 54 subsection 10 and subsection 11 is that when a request has been received from the judicial officer or judicial commissioner of the central tax or of the state tax or of the union territory tax. A application has been received from the commissioner of central tax, commissioner of state tax or commissioner of union territory tax to withhold, not to pay, means to withhold such amount of refund which is due to the person who is claiming the refund in the accordance with the provision of section 54 subsection 10 and sub 54 subsection 11, or the proper officer of the custom determines that the export of the goods is is made in the violation of provision of Custom Act 1962. Means when the proper officer of the custom explain that, or it is, or he finds that there is the export of goods and such export is made by the such exporter in the violation of provision of Custom Act. So if any of the condition is there, means if there is any request, if there is any request which is received from the judicial commissioner of central tax, state tax or union territory tax to withhold the amount of payment of such a refund, or the proper officer of the custom, or the proper officer of the custom determines that the goods which are exported in the violation of provision, means there is the violation of the provision of Custom Act in the case of such export of goods, then the amount of the refund will be withheld. Means the refund is not credited to the bank account of exporter. It will be withheld. It will be withheld. In ever case, in this ever case, the proper officer of integrated tax. In this case, when there is any application received from the officer or from the commissioner, or where the proper officer is satisfied that, where the proper officer is satisfied that there is the export of goods which is made in the violation of custom, in the violation of custom provision. So in this case, the proper officer of integrated tax, then the proper officer of integrated tax at the custom station shall intimate the applicant and the judicial commissioner of central tax, state tax or union tax, as the case may be, and a copy of such intimation as and the copy of such intimation shall be transmitted on the common portal. In this case, the proper officer of integrated tax, the proper officer of IGST tax, at the custom station, at the custom station, he shall intimate the application, he shall intimate it to the applicant as well as to the judicial commissioner of central tax, judicial commissioner of state tax or judicial commissioner of union territory tax, as the case may be, and he will also submit the copy of such intimation. He will also submit the application, sorry, the intimation on the GST portal. He will also submit the application on the GST portal. Upon transmission of said intimation, the proper officer of central government, the proper officer of central tax, when the application is transmitted, the application is transmitted, then the proper officer of central tax, the proper officer of state tax, the proper officer of union territory tax, as the case may be, shall pass an order in the prescribed form. When the intimation is transmitted, when the intimation about such payment or about such withholding is transmitted by the proper officer, by the proper officer to the central tax commissioner, to the state tax proper officer or to the union tax proper officer, as the case may be, then they shall pass an order according to the requirement or in the prescribed form. They will pass an order in the prescribed form. Where the applicant become entitled to refund the amount of withhold, where the applicant become entitled to refund the amount of such withhold, then the concerned judicial officer of the central tax, state tax or the union territory tax, as the case may be, shall proceed such refund after passing an order where it was found that now such exporter is entitled for such a refund. Means now he is become entitled to the refund of such withhold amount. So In this case, the concerned judicial officer. In this case, the concerned judicial officer of the central tax, of the state tax, or of the union territory tax, as the case may be, they shall proceed. They shall proceed for such payment after passing an order. If they are satisfied that now such person is eligible, now he can take the refund or he is entitled for such a refund. In such case, they will pass an order and they will start the processing of such a refund. Now, we will discuss refund to the government of Bhutan on export of on the export to the Bhutan. Now, we will discuss when there is the export of any goods, to the Bhutan. So, what will be the provision of refund to the government of Bhutan on export to Bhutan? The central government may pay refund of IGST to the government of Bhutan on the export to Bhutan for such a class of goods as the case may be notified in this behalf. Means may pay the amount of refund. The central government may it, it may pay the amount of refund of IGST to the government of Bhutan. Central government it may pay the amount of refund of IGST to the government of Bhutan when there is the export to the Bhutan for such class of goods as may be notified as may be notified in this behalf. Means if there is any export of goods to the Bhutan and there is a particular product or particular goods which is notified by the government, in this case the central government may pay the amount of refund of such IGST to the government of Bhutan on the export of such notified goods. If it is not notified goods, then there is no payment of refund of IGST to the government of Bhutan on the export to Bhutan of any unnotified goods. Where such a refund is paid to the government of Bhutan, the exporter shall not be pay any refund of the integrated tax when there is the payment of tax refund of tax sorry when there is the refund of tax to the when there is the refund of tax to the government, then the taxpayer then the exporter shall not be paid any refund of the integrated tax. When there is a payment of refund to the Bhutan government, then no payment of refund shall be made to the applicant or shall be made to the exporter. No refund. Now we will discuss export of services. In our previous slides, we have discussed all the provisions which are relating to the export of goods. Now we will discuss the provision relating to the export of services. What will be the provision of refund in the case of export of services under the GST? Refund application. First, we will make, or the exporter, he will make an application for the refund. The application for refund of IGST, which is paid by him on the service exported out of India, shall be filed in form GST RFD01. GST RFD01 and shall be dealt with in the accordance with the provision of Rule 89. The application for the refund of IGST. The application which is paid the amount of IGST which is paid by the such person or which is paid by the exporter when when he export the services. He export the services out of India for the purpose of making the refund. For making the refund of such IGST, the exporter shall file an application, and such application shall be filed by him in form GST RFD01. Such application shall be filed by them or shall be filed by him in form GST RFD01, and it shall be dealt with the accordance with the provision of Rule 89, and it will be deal with such application will be deal with as per the provision of section 89. Number 2, refund of ITC paid. The refund of ITC paid on export of goods or export of service under bond or letter of undertaking. Now we will discuss the refund of ITC when there is the export of goods or there is the export of services under the bond or under the LUT without a payment of tax. Means the export of the goods or the export of services is made without the payment of IGST on the basis of bond or on the basis of letter of undertaking. Then another option available with the exporter of the goods or the exporter of the services or both is to export under the LUT or under the bond without the payment of IGST and claim the refund of ITC. There is another option that he can export the goods or he can export the services of both without the payment of IGST on the basis of LUT or on the basis of bond, and he can claim the amount of refund of ITC. Further, in such case, the refund of unutilized ITC at the end of any tax period, the amount determined under Rule 89 Sub-Rule 4. Further, the amount of unutilized ITC. The ITC which is not utilized is to be determined on the basis of or under the Rule 89 Sub-Rule 4 shall be granted to the applicant, and the electronic credit ledger shall be debited by the applicant by the amount which is equal to the refund so claim. Is that the amount is that when the export is made without the payment of tax, without the payment of IGST on the basis of bond or on the basis of LUT. So in this case, the amount of in this case, the taxpayer can make an application for the refund of ITC, for the refund of ITC, for the refund of ITC. So the amount of the unutilized amount of ITC is to be determined on the basis of Rule 89 Sub-Rule 4, and it shall be granted to the applicant. Such amount which is calculated or which is determined as per the Rule 89 Sub-Rule 4 will be granted. It will be granted or it will be provided to the applicant. In this case, when the amount is accepted, when the amount is granted, then in this case, the applicant will debit such amount. The amount will be debited by the applicant in his electronic credit ledger. Is that the amount of electronic credit ledger will be debited by the amount which is equal of refund so claim, because the amount of the electronic cash ledger debit will be debit and it will be debit equal to the amount of such refund so claim. So this is the refund of ITC, which is paid on export of goods, export of services or both. Now we will discuss recovery of refund of unutilized ITC or integrated tax which is paid on export of goods, where export proceeds are not realized within the stipulated time period. Now we will discuss the provision of recovery. How to recover the refund of unutilized ITC. For the example, the refund of the ITC is made or the refund of integrated tax is made by the authority to the exporter, but it was found that the payment from the importer is not received within the stipulated time period. It is not received within the stipulated time period. In this case, there is the provision of recovery. Now, the proper officer or the department they will they will start the recovery. They will start the recovery of such a payment of such payment. They will start the recovery of such payment means the payment of unutilized input tax credit or payment of integrated integrated tax refund. So now in this case, what will be the provision? Rule 96B has made it mandatory to realize proceed of export of goods within the period which is allowed under the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. 1999 is that as per the rule 96B, as per the rule 96B, when there is any export of any goods, then the amount of such goods, then the amount of such export is required to be realized within the allowed period. Such period which is allowed under the FEMA. The payment should be received from the importer within the stipulated time period. In case of non-realization, in case when the payment is not realized or it is partially realized, in case when the payment from the importer is not realized or it is realized but partially realized, then any refund which is paid would be subject to the recovered from the taxpayer with interest, except in those cases where RBI writes off the requirement of such realization on merits. Is that if such payment, if the payment is if the payment of the proceed is not received from the importer within the reasonable time period, within the stipulated time period, the time period which is mentioned by the FEMA or which is allowed by the FEMA. In this case, in this case, the any amount of refund, in this case, the any amount of refund which is paid by the, which is paid under this act to the taxpayer, to the taxpayer, it will be recovered. It will be recovered with the amount of interest. With the amount of interest is that, for the example, Mr. Ram, he exported some goods to John in UK. The payment is not received in the respect of such export from the importer. So, but the refund is already claimed by Mr. Ram and the amount of the refund has been received. And the amount of the refund has been received. So, in this situation, the claim means the proceed is not received from John. In this case, the refund which is paid to Mr. Ram will be recovered. It will be recovered from Mr. Ram with the amount of interest. Means the government or the proper officer will recover the amount of such a refund from Mr. Ram with the amount of interest, except except means there is some exception. Except there is the exception that if the RBI, if the RBI explain or if it is right of the requirement of such a realization or merits, then there is no need to be no need of recovery. Means if the Reserve Bank of India writes off, it is a right of the requirement of such a realization on the merits, then there is no need of recovery of such a refund. In case any refund is recovered on the account of non-realization of proceed and the realization was made later on the extended period which is permitted by Reserve Bank of India, then the proper officer shall refund the amount so recovered to the taxpayer. If the amount of the proceed is not received within the stipulated time period, and the proper officer or the amount is recovered by the proper officer from the exporter, the amount of refund is is recovered by the proper officer from the exporter. But now after the extended time period, within the extended time period or after the stipulated time period, the amount is paid by such importer within the extended time period. In this case, the proper officer shall refund such amount which is recovered from the taxpayer. For the example, the payment is not received by Mr. Ram from Mr. John within the stipulated time period. The amount of the refund is recovered by proper officer. After the certain time period or within the extended time period, the period which is extended by the Reserve Bank of India, John makes the payment. John makes the payment. John makes the payment. So in this case, now the proper officer will make the payment of such recovered amount to Mr. Ram because now the payment or the proceed is recovered. The said rule stipulates as follows. The said rule stipulates as follows. Where any refund of unutilized input tax credit on the account of export, of goods or of integrated tax means where there is any refund of unutilized ITC. When there is the refund of any unutilized ITC on the account of export of goods, or there is the refund of integrated tax which is paid on export of goods has been paid to the applicant, but the sale proceed in the respect of such exported goods has not been realized in full or in part in India within the stipulated time period allowed under the framework, including any extension of such period. The person to whom the refund has been made shall deposit the amount so refunded to the extent of non-realization of sale proceed. To the extent of non-realization of sale proceed is that where there is the amount of refund of unutilized ITC. Unutilized ITC on the account of export of goods, or there is the refund of IGST on the export of goods has been paid by the proper officers to the applicant, but it was found that within the stipulated time period or within the extended time period, the amount of the sale proceed in the respect of such a refund has not been realized, means the payment is not realized from the importer in full or in part within the stipulated time period which is provided by the FEMA, or the extended time period which is provided by FEMA. In this case, the person to whom the refund has been made shall deposit such amount, then such person shall deposit such amount so refunded to the extent of non-realization of sale proceed, means he will deposit the amount of refund. He will deposit the amount of refund to the extent and to the limited to the unrealized amount of the sale proceed. If the payment of the sale proceed is not received of rupees 10 lakh, then such exporter will deposit such amount of rupees 10. If such payment is or the sale proceed is not received within the within the extended time means within the reasonable time period means the time period which is provided by the FEMA plus extended time period. Then the person to whom refund is made, then such person will make a deposit of such then he will make a deposit of such amount to the extent of non-realization of sales proceed. The amount so refunded to the extent of non-realization of sale proceed has to be deposited. Such amount, such amount which is required to be deposited to the extent of non-realization of sale proceed has to be deposited. It is required to be deposited with the amount of interest. Such amount is required to be deposited with the amount of interest within the period of 30 days. Such amount is required to be deposited within the period of 30 days of expiry of said period. Such amount is required to be deposited within the period of 30 days before the expiry of such period, or as the case may be, extended period, or as the case may be the extended period. Means such amount is required to be paid or required to be deposited within the 30 days of stipulated time period or extended time period. In case if the person or the exporter fails to do so, if the amount if the amount of the amount which is equal to the non-realization of sale proceed is not paid by the such person within the 30 days, then the amount then the refund amount shall be recovered then the amount of the refund shall be recovered from the such person according to the provision of section 73 or section 74 of the CGST Act. Is that the amount of the refund shall be recovered. The amount of the refund shall be recovered from such person. It shall be recovered from such person in the accordance with provision of section 73 and provision of section 74 of CGST Act as the case may be, as it applicable for the recovery of erroneously refund along with the amount of interest along with the amount of interest. So it will be recovered from the such export. However, where sale proceed or any part thereof in the respect of such export, in the respect of such exported goods, the sale proceed is not realized by the applicant within the period which is allowed under the FEMA, where the amount of the sale proceed from such export is not allowed is not received within the reasonable time period or within the stipulated time period or within the extended time period within the extended time period, the period which is allowed by the FEMA. But the RBI writes off the requirement of realization of such sale proceed on minutes. Then the refund which is paid to the applicant shall not be recovered. No need to recover if the RBI explains or if the RBI writes off such payment on the minutes, then no need of recovery from the export. Where the sale proceed or where the sale proceed are realized, where the sale proceed are realized from the importer by the applicant in full or in part after the amount of refund has been recovered to him and the applicant produce evidence about such realization within the period of 3 from the date of realization of such sale proceed. So the amount so recovered shall be refunded by the proper officer, provided that the sale proceed has been realized within the extended time period which is permitted by Reserve Bank of India, where the amount of the such realized amount or the amount of sale proceed is realized from the importer within the extended time period the extended time period which is provided by Reserve Bank of India. If such payment is received within the extended time period, then in this case, the applicant shall the applicant shall produce the evidence about such payment within the period of 3 months from the date of realization. He will submit the proof about such payment. In this case, the amount which is recovered, in this case, the amount which is recovered from the such person by the proper officer. In this case, the amount which is recovered from the person, from the exporter by the proper officer will be refunded or will be refunded by the proper officer. Means the proper officer will make the refund of such amount to the such exporter from whom he has recovered such amount, if it is realized within the extended time period. So, on the basis of such discussion, we have discussed or the we have covered the part 4 of the refund topic. There is also another part 5. And after the proper discussion of part 5, we have totally and we have fully covered the concept of refund. We will discuss part 5 in our next class in the detailed form so that you can properly understand the concept of refund very deeply and properly. So thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye bye and have a nice day.